Hello everyone and welcome to our expert session brought to you by Motie Bring, Chief Commercial Officer at Nuvei. We are about to discuss several key trends happening in the payments industry, from payment methods in various commerce verticals, consumer behavior with a focus on Millennials and Gen Z, to cross-border commerce and the Brexit impact. Hello Motie, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna. It's great to be here.
Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with an overview of the payment methods. There are several alternative payment methods that initially entered in the industry, as their name suggests, as a second option of payment, to now being a top preference among consumers. And we are talking here about e-wallets, the super apps, the account-to-account payments, all forms of mobile payments that have overpowered cash and currently rivaling physical cards. Now, what is your take on the successful roadmap of these payment methods? And I would love to hear your opinion on to what extent they challenge the payment made via card networks.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think when you look at the evolution of payment methods, from cash to cards to what we see now as the alternative payment methods or the electronic ones, it's the evolution of consumer behavior that is driving it in many ways. When 20 years ago, when the internet started to be used as a place for people to purchase things, to pay for stuff, cards would have been the ultimate way of using it, because obviously you couldn't use cash, and then you use your credit card to be able to make payments for purchases. As we've seen the evolution of the internet or e-commerce or mobile as the main, if you want, device that people use to make purchases, you saw the evolution of payment methods that are suitable for those mechanisms. The evolution of all the e-wallets, be it domestic ones in different countries or global ones like Apple Pay and Google Pay. The definition of alternative payment methods also indicates the market share that the big schemes had in the world, but actually in many countries their penetration was always limited. And as companies started to work globally, they understood the need to adapt to consumer behavior in different countries, rather than assume that if you accept the main card brands known in the world, then that would be sufficient for you to, if you want to take over the world. And that's why you see a lot of what used to be called as the alternative becoming the main payment methods.
Okay, thank you. And since you're talking about this consumer behavior, let's dig a bit into who's influencing the dynamic of the payment industry, more precisely the Millennials and Gen Z. So how do they drive the innovation further, and how do businesses adapt to these types of consumer demands?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that Generation Z, who I do not belong to, were born when I remember getting my first mobile phone. And it looked very, very different, and it was a very exotic piece of device you could use. But they were born into it. So this is a generation who were born into, if you want, all the electronic devices being available to them, and therefore the adaptation of new payment methods has been led by this generation. So if 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a new payment method needed a few years to be adopted by many people and become quite dominant, we've seen how that shrunk significantly over the last few years, and you can see a new payment method being introduced and very quickly adopted by new consumers. The new generation Z, if you want, are very much about convenient. It needs to be easy to use, it needs to be safe and secure, but as quick as possible in breaking down barriers. You don't want to have to jump through too many loops when in the process of buying stuff. You don't want to have to do too many steps in the process. You don't want to have to enter your card number anymore. You want everything to be done for you. And any payment method that's been developed over the last few years that gave consumers a sense of security using biometrics, other methods that are very unique to you, and ease of use become hugely successful. And it's not unique to one country. You can see it across the globe. Different regions have different payment methods that are more popular based on cultural preferences, etc. But it's across the board, across the globe.
All right. Speaking of convenience, I was wondering if you can provide some insights into the pay later trend, the pay later, buy now, pay later option, and yeah, the level of adoption and preference.
Yeah, buy now pay later has been around for actually longer than we want to believe. In some parts of the world, the installment payments have been around by the card schemes for since before I was born. So we have seen them everywhere. What we have seen over the last decade is the new, if you want, alternative payment methods coming up with a newer version of buy now pay later. We've seen that in Europe, in Australia, and now we're seeing it in North America. They've been hugely successful with the younger generations that has been leading the way in using them. Here in the UK, there's a lot of noise with regard to consumer behaviour, consumer protection, and the risk of consumer getting into debt or not. It's a very interesting debate because I think buy now pay later has actually helped a lot of people in building a much more structured way of debt management, which probably did not exist before. So instead of buying for something using credit, and then hopefully one day you'll be able to pay off the credit, they are able to say, well, I can afford to make this payment of 100 euros, 100 pounds a month, and I can purchase something and pay for it over 4 or 6 months, and therefore it's now part of my budget calculation. This is actually helping many people, and I think gives people the feeling of control, and therefore we see huge uptake of consumers opting for those payment methods. And I think the uncertainties with COVID probably is pushing even more consumers to use buy now pay later as a payment method. I think what we are seeing is the in the UK specifically, the regulators coming in. You hear all these horror stories about people who are going into bigger debt because of having the buy now pay later, and that will probably lead to an evolution in capabilities and functionality of buy now pay later rather than just regulations. People were able to get into debt before using credit cards with no actual mechanism to make sure that they pay off their debt. What buy now pay later does, it actually goes one step further and say you can have this credit so long as you can pay it over a period of time. So it comes with some need for discipline, which obviously brings the need to have some rules around it. But I can only see that growing over the next few years, and you can see on different websites how it's evolving and being offered in more and more industries as a key payment method.
Yeah, speaking of discipline, for all I know, in the UK, I know there are some topics related to regulating more this space. So it's definitely, we should definitely watch this space.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, especially if you follow the media, it would come from consumer groups who are, for the right reasons, want to make sure that there's a protection there for their consumer audience. We just need to make sure that, like any debate, it's balanced between the pros and the cons, and in the context of, the whole notion of people's personal debt and how we help people in managing it in a way that where they're in control and empowered. And if something goes wrong, people are not suddenly left, unable to afford to pay the bills, buy food, look after their kids, etc.
Yeah, it's a good point. So we have trendy payment methods, but we also have some trendy commerce verticals, such as digital goods and subscription-based services that have gained momentum due to the pandemic. So what can you tell us about the payment experiences in these verticals and what trends we should watch in this space?
Yeah, I think everything to do with online shopping is accelerated over the last 12 months, and it's not likely to change. You can read in the media, there's so many stories about how the pandemic kind of fast forwarded the evolution of some parts of the payments industry and consumer behavior by a decade. And with this pandemic not making any signs of ending anytime soon, I doubt that people will be rushing out to the high street and get back to the way they behaved before. But it also created opportunities, because suddenly if you had a small shop somewhere in mainland Europe or anywhere in the world, you can reach out to a lot more people if you opt for the internet, marketplaces, different places where you can go and offer your goods. So where before you were limited by your location to who will be your customers, now you live in a world where you have 7 billion potential buyers. And that brings with it evolution of many payment methods and many ways of behavior. Recurring is a great example because that's been used actually for many years. We all pay bills on a monthly basis. We have our mobile app to pay on a monthly basis, and we see how that's now evolving into other parts of the industry, from games to food deliveries. A lot of food delivery company would opt for, if you buy a subscription for that, you get a discount on not having to pay for delivery. So we can see how it's spreading in multiple industries. And the reasons for that are obvious. Number one, it guarantees revenue streams for businesses. More importantly, it brings loyalty, because if I opt to pay for a service on a monthly basis, I'm likely to go back to the same company rather than try their competitor, because I've already paid for that service. So the recurring is becoming extremely important as a payment engine, and we see a lot of that. And I think, we mentioned before alternative payment methods. There's so many layers in that we will see growing.
Okay, thank you, Motie. Let's dive a bit into the cross-border payments and marketplaces, if that's okay, because this is currently a successful area. However, the recent and very discussed events, Brexit, will surely affect at a certain level the cross-border commerce for both consumers and businesses. So there will be different implications, of course. So at least for the UK-based merchants and marketplaces, how do you see their future post-Brexit?
Yeah, I think that the whole notion of marketplaces in European landscape and globally, they're becoming more and more popular. And I think I mentioned before, you're able to have a small shop somewhere, and suddenly the whole world could potentially be your audience. So the people are coming up with really cool ideas of products that they want to sell, and they manage to sell quantities that have never been dreamt of before. And that brings more creativity and more opportunities for people, both as companies and as consumers, things that we probably wouldn't have thought about before. And that brings with it all the complexity of dealing with global payments. Again, if you're used to having a small shop somewhere, now you accept the payment methods relevant to you. You get cash, cards. That's what you need. And now you need to navigate the world where you have customers coming from multiple countries, needing to be able to pay in different currencies, cross-border for deliveries. Some of it will come back to you because it'll be the wrong size, it's not exactly what the consumer thought they were buying, etc. The taxes that come from cross-border sales. Brexit is a great example. If I buy anything from the continent now, I can no longer, do not longer have to pay the VAT in the continent, because I'll be charged for it when it comes to the UK. So if I wasn't getting the discount at the source, then I'm being double charged. So companies have to navigate through everything to do with the payment methods, the refunds policy, and the seamless experience customers will have there, the different taxation that will come by navigating through different countries, and the delivery process, making sure that goods are delivered quickly and efficiently, and where there are returns needed, that's done quickly and efficiently as well. So marketplaces are here to stay. They're going to grow. They're going to become even more popular. They have been, and we can see that over the last few years. I don't think that's going to change in any shape or form. If anything, it would become even more popular, both by consumers and by businesses who try to target more consumers.
Yes, it is definitely a fast-growing market. Motie, I suggest to seal this great discussion with some insights related to the company's approach. So related to the previously discussed topic, what is Nuvei's strategy that keeps the company ahead of the curve?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we spend many hours trying to look at market trends and see how we can adopt our roadmap, our development, our strategic approach, our commercial approach to cater for where we think the world's going. And we do it on geographical level. So we cover, we have offices across the globe, and we want to make sure that we cater for those geographies. We look at the vertical level, what verticals are, coming up now, which one are already very successful where we want to go into. So then we look into products from payment methods, alternative payment methods, fraud and risk management. So all the different products that we can work with, and we make the calculations based on what would work where best. So we are investing heavily on the recurring side. We're investing heavily in marketplaces because we believe that that's exactly where the future is on the retail and digital goods side. We're working heavily on our travel proposition. We talk a lot about US gambling. We are very strong in gambling in Europe. And now we have built and we launched our US proposition, and we're very excited about that because that's a market is opening up. So we look across the globe for different verticals where either we're already extremely strong or ones that we think our proposition is very suitable for, and work on bringing those capabilities to the market and grow our team to make sure that we can cater for that.
Okay, Motie, thank you so much for providing your valuable input. That's really appreciated. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe and stay in the know.